Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, great. So basically we're on text 47 today, right? Krishna Shravanam read this one, beginning about the earth. So I know I was planning on doing this verse.
You just read this one, you didn't do 46.
Oh, didn't do 46. Okay, great. Bhavanam Brahmana Stanam Dharanam
Is it working, Doris? Give us the signal.
Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam Bhavanam Brahmanastanam Dharanam Sadvasesanam Sarva Sattva Gunadbedhe Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam Bhavanam Brahmanastanam Dharanam Sadvasesanam Sarva Sattva Gunadbedhe Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam Bhavanam Brahmanastanam Dharanam Sadvasesanam Sarva Sattva Gunadbedhe Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam.
Okay.
Bhavanam Brahmanastanam
Bhavanam Brahmanastanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodbedha
Sarva Sattva Gunodbedha
Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam
Prithvi Vritti Lakshanam
Bhavanam Brahmanastanam
Bhavanam Brahmanastanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Vrittihi Vritti Lakshanam
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Brahmanam Brahmanasthanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam Sarva Gunodvedha Vritti-lakshanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Prithivi Vritti Lakshanam
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam
Bhavanam Brahmanam Stanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam One second. Okay, online changers.
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Bhavanam Brahmanasthanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Dharanam Sadvisheshanam
Sarvasattva Gunodvedaha
Sarvasattva Gunodvedha
Prithivi Vritti Lakshanam
Prithivi Vritti-lakshanam. Okay.
So that word by word saying Bhavanam
Bhavanam.
modeling form.
Modeling form.
With the Supreme Brahman. Sthanam, constructing places of residence. Dharnam, containing substances. Sat Visheshanam, distinguishing the open space. Sarva, all. Sattva, of existence. Guna, qualities. Udvedha, the place for manifestation. Prithvi, of earth. Vritti, of the functions. Lakshanam, the characteristics. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The characteristics of the functions of earth can be perceived by modeling forms of the Supreme Brahman, by constructing places of residence, by preparing pots to contain water, and so forth. In other words, the earth is the place of substance for all elements. Different elements such as sound, sky, air, fire, and water can be perceived in the earth. Another feature of the earth, especially mentioned here, is that earth can manifest different forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this statement of Kapila, it is confirmed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahman, has innumerable forms, which are described in the scriptures. By manipulation of earth and its products, such as stone, wood, and jewels, these forms of the Supreme Lord can be present before our eyes. When a form of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu is manifested by presentation of a statue made of earth, it is not imaginary. The earth gives shape to the Lord's forms as described in the scriptures. In the Brahma Samhita, there's a description of Lord Krishna's lands, the variegatedness of the spiritual abode, and the forms of the Lord playing a flute with his spiritual body. All these forms are described in the scriptures, and when they are thus presented, they become worshipable. They are not imaginary, as the Mayavad philosopher says. Sometimes the word bhavanan is misinterpreted as imagination. But bhavanan does not mean imagination. It means giving actual shape to the description of Vedic literature. Earth is the ultimate transformation of all living entities and their respective modes of material nature. Yes, I was reflecting on all that. There's one thing Prabhupada had pointed out in these verses, and they also pointed out in his lectures, that not only is Lord Kapila giving us a list of the elements, but he's also giving us their characteristics of the elements. Like water quenches thirst, and you can see and cook by the light, the sun. So so Prabhupada was saying this is very scientific. You have the element, and you have the information about the element, such as its characteristics. You have its weight, its size, its taste, its odor, like that. And Prabhupada was talking about cyanide. He said they don't have anything registered for the taste of cyanide. As they said, basically, if you taste it, you're finished. You're gone. But basically, there's some yogis. They take a little bit of the cyanide, so some sort of a practice that they do. But it's just a little bit. You have to be a yogi to do it. The yogis can swallow mercury and urinate on copper coins in the morning and make gold. Right. So Baba says, so you can swallow mercury. So you try to swallow mercury, you'll be finished like that. So, and what else? So the worship of the deity is what Prabhupada was calling worship in the mode of goodness. It was sattva guna. You have nirguna, not possessing material qualities, and saguna, possessing material qualities. So what he was saying is that the worship of the deity is saguna worship. It's worship of the Lord. It is spiritual attributes and spiritual forms. So that's one thing that we were discussing, that when we see the deity here, we offer our prayers that the Supreme Lord is actually present. So we're very careful about handling things, handling the deities or handling the Lord's paraphernalia. We're very careful when we're on the altar. Of course, we're very careful when we're in the temple. Nectar of Devotion has a list of offenses to be avoided. So it's like we don't turn our back to the deities. We don't wear the color red or blue, and we don't engage in like other conversations. Like that, talking about mundane subject matters before the deities in the temple. Let's see, and that's the one point that I wanted to make, is that Prabhupada was actually pointing out that here's the characteristics of each material element as well. And so what Prabhupada was explaining also, that Lord Kapila Dev, he's also explaining, again, he's within the metaphysical science of Lord Kapila Dev's Sankhya philosophy. He's also explaining creation, as how each element is coming into being from the most subtle to the more gross. So now we're talking about Earth. Earth possesses all of the qualities of all of the previous elements, and one other element of its own, which is odor. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I'm the fragrance of the earth. So under proper conditions, the same earth that has the exact same odor produces the smell or the fragrance of the rose flower or any other flower, the jasmine, the magnolia, the gladiolas, gardenias, right? And also like the flavor of the fruits and vegetables. So all this is all coming from the nutrients, everything manifested, which is actually within the earth. And so many different varieties, and so they have so many different colors a lot of this is very mathematical. It's the same mathematical equation that you'll find throughout nature. You know, the different spins and the spirals. You haven't noticed that? Oh yeah, they're finding out that like even the orbits of the planets that are going around the sun over specific periods of time, they've also got this sort of mathematical thing. You can draw it out with a compass, you know, different types of patterns and designs like that. So they're all mathematical and they're following the same mathematical rules. So that's one thing that's very consistent in the universe. You know about that, right? When you have the colors and the spirals, like in the sunflower seeds, you know, or the sunflowers, you see how they're kind of like diagonally and they're curved, but yeah, these all have mathematical equations that they could actually plot this out and draw it out. What's that? Yeah, geometry. Yeah, they study this by the science of geometry. So we're talking about like a big giant universe full of geometry. They're trying to look out and see, well, first of all, according to our vision, it appears we're here in the universe, in many universes, alone. We're by ourselves, right? They haven't found yet any life that's similar to our own. Either that or it's been diverted and they just don't want us to know. But yeah, that's the other point. We're not qualified. The process is what Prabhupada had mentioned in Easy Journey to Other Planets, is that by the process of birth and death, where you actually take birth within the society of that planet. Otherwise, what we're perceiving now, according to this, our perspective, is a vacant universe full of dust and rocks and chemicals. I guess they're saying now Titan, one of the moons on Saturn, is icy cold, and it rains methane. It has rivers and oceans, and it rains methane, and it's so icy cold that the ice is just hard as a rock. So there's all these different observations or perceptions, but they don't see life. They're looking for a life of similar to our own. But Brahma, he's what I understand, his body is composed of intelligence. So it's a subtle form, and he rides a swan. So Prabhupada was mentioning this. I think somebody was asking a question about it, or for clarification. You're saying, so the standards are different. Here on this Earth planet, we're relying on mechanics, mechanical engineering, right? And so we have our jet airlines, and they can fly persons who are traveling from many different cities. They got them all linked up, different countries, right? Different cities and different countries, right? And in a relatively short period of time, I guess it took 15 hours to fly to India, right? And it was a really, really big plane. I think before, when I first joined the movement in the late 70s, the process was that they had to lay over in London or something like that and get shots. You know, now we don't have to get any shots. There wasn't any layover, right? Yeah, it didn't take like 2 or 3 days to get there. You know, just one flight, one plane. And then, so Prabhupada was saying, so what's the difference? The standards here, we're relying on the mechanical engineering, and Brahma's mechanical engineering on his planet is so exalted, it's the highest planet in the material universe. He's definitely the chief within this universe. and he rides a swan carrier plane because the technology is different. So why not? The demigods with their wives is described as they're flying in these flower airplanes, and they're throwing flower petals and flowers on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Krishna did something virtuous when he was in Vrindavan, the demigods, they would rain flowers riding with their wives in their flower airplanes. So all these things are all discussed and described. So yeah, that's the whole process of the worship of the deity, is that this is authorized Archa Vigraha worship. I believe, what do they call these specific, the Archa, what is it, the Archa Vidi? Right, yeah, Pancharatra regulations, the scriptures for Brahminical culture. So this is actually real human standards, real human culture in the mode of goodness, as opposed to rascaldom, unauthorized activities in the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, which is leading a person away from their best interests, causing them for their future suffering. So the whole idea of the material world is the material world is suffering, but due to illusion, under abominable conditions, the living entity thinks that he's enjoying, when actually he's not enjoying, he's actually suffering. You know, even in human form of life, so-called enjoyment. What is it? Rasikananda, he made this comment before. He's saying they go out and make themselves sick, right? And then get their hangover and recuperate and go out and do it again. Right? So that's the drinking the alcohol, it just simply makes you sick. Or the long-term illness over long-term use, now these things are causing them, cirrhosis of the liver, which is definitely a product of the mode of ignorance, where they had harmed themselves and maybe harmed others, and the one who dies in the mode of ignorance in this way, the door is wide open to hellish conditions and going back down into the lower species of life, going back down to 8,400,000 species of life. So this is a process that we've just completed. The living entity's been in the material world since time immemorial. Jai Agora Nitai Ki Jai. There's no time when that we traced out when the living entity actually came into the material world, but it's been a very, very, very long time ago. Many, many, many creations stemming from the bodily pores of Mahavishnu, and in each one of these creations, Brahma is born, and in each day of Brahma's life, he again creates, because at his night there's a partial devastation of the universe. And so the species are, they're actually numbered. There's actually a number for them like this, but there's a specific order of them. Is that the fish are actually lower than plant life. A lot of people would think a fish, well, he moves around, right? But he's got to stay in the water, but he doesn't have any hands. He's got his fins. He was beaten so hard in the hellish planets that he didn't desire to have hands and legs anymore, so be prepared to become a fish. So they're kind of flapping around. And there's an analogy about the fish, about the living entity being in the material world rather than being in the spiritual world. It's like the fish being out of the water. So that the fish is uncomfortable and he'll actually die unless you put him back into the water. So the living entity is being part and parcel of Krishna, Jiva, Atma, is being Sat Chit Ananda. Our natural position is actually one of association with the Supreme Lord through devotional service in the spiritual world, on the absolute plane. Right here on the relative plane, we're identifying with the material body and trying to be enjoyers of ourself, trying to enjoy specifically through the senses, which are imperfect. It's an erroneous conception. Basically, it's just to maintain the body and soul, to keep the body and soul together, to maintain our service. And in that way, we actually really become happy, rather than trying to do it on ourselves independently. And even then, nothing's independent. You have to be a servant. Everybody's got to serve someone. So you have to serve the master as long as the master's happy, right? Right, but when the master is not happy, he's now, his senses now are not being satisfied the way that he would like them to be. So then there's no more relationship, right? Someone asked, Prabhupada says, you graduate from your course, you get your degree, you write your paper. Oh, I am so and so, such and such a dog. Can you please give me a job? Right? You write your resume and you hand it to your prospective employer. May I please be your dog in your service? Here are my qualifications. So that's actually the process. So while I jog my memory, does anybody have any questions or comments? Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I was wondering why in the material world things tend to get more and more difficult as you go on. Like, let's say, for example, when I used to play football, and Pee-wee football was easier than middle school football. And middle school football was easier than high school, and so on and so forth. But as you gradually go up in rank, it gets harder because the people get bigger, they get more intense, more enthusiastic. And same thing with life. Like, we get older, it's harder to walk around, it's harder. We go through like changes of body, and that's hard. So I was just wondering, like, but in the spiritual world, as I've heard from more advanced devotees than me, that as you progress in Krishna consciousness, it actually gets easier.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, why is this?
Oh yeah, in the spiritual world, yeah, everything becomes more fresh and more new and more rejuvenating. Right. It's the other way around. In the material world, time is deteriorating everything and taking everything away. Everything is fixed in its own time. But in the eternal spiritual world, everything is eternal. Everything is fresh and new. Everyone appears to be like a blooming young youth. Yeah, but it's a different atmosphere in the material world due to the time factor that everything's getting run down, it falls apart, the screws are getting stripped and falling out, right? You can't keep it in good repair anymore, right? Yeah, the body but these are the specific signs it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. There are certain signs, certain aches and pains, and, getting a little harder to move around and walk. Oh yeah, the gray hairs and the wrinkles. Right? In the heavenly planets, they always appear to be useful, but they have a flower garland around their neck. And when their flower garland starts to dry out and wilt, that's the sign that they're advancing in elderly age, and their karmic activity in the heavenly planets are about to be exhausted, and they're going to be coming back down again to the earthly planet like that. So certain signs and they're specifically mentioned the gray hairs, the wrinkles, specific pains, like that. But yeah, everything in the material world is all has its own fixed time. A relative time factor. Prabhupada was talking about that, Einstein's theory of relativity. So like the fly's lifetime is just a matter of maybe 3 days, or all those flies Prabhupada was talking about. There's millions of these flies during the evening, and in the morning there's just piles of flies dead on the porch. They're just, right, so... But a whale and an elephant lives for hundreds of years. They're really, really large. The elephants, the whales, I think they're kind of docile. They can be dangerous, but they're very big. You have to be careful. Like in India, I think somebody got pushed up against the wall by the elephant, and it killed them. So you have to be careful around the elephants and the horses. They'll accidentally step on you. Yeah, you got to. If you're in there cleaning their pen, cleaning their cage, you need to, stay away from them. Maybe tie them up over in the corner of the cage. It's out of the way so you can work. But yeah, they don't mean to do it. But yeah, they'll step on you. You get a big bruise on your foot. Your toenails will fall off again. Like that. Yeah, you'll be black and blue, bruised really bad. You'll be soaking your foot in Epsom salts. But yeah, there's certain characteristics about the material world. So, it's about devotional service and spiritual life is compared a lot of times to walking on a tightrope or a razor's edge, or what was the thing? The snake charmer, the one who controls the snakes. They're very, very careful not to get bitten by the snake. So one's very, very careful to control the snake-like mind, not to let the mind loose. In fact, this is my realization. So actually, it's all ahankara. It's due to the false ego, right? But one has so many different courses of actions that could have happened, took place for all these different other types of memories about activities that are resentful. Other than how you actually really solve that specific issue, what you need to do, and how things kind of morphed and evolved into so many different other things, right? So it's basically really a ahankara, false ego, the resentments. But then once you kind of get rid of those, you kind of start again on a whole nother set of it's a whole nother set of resentments. It's the same persons. It's the same incidents that they did, but they're different incidents this time, right? So you have a whole nother dossier, a whole nother file, the same sort of thing that you just cleared up, a whole nother bag of garbage of resentments, right? So you kind of notice that's just cleared out this whole big giant thing, right? Gita, where Arjuna says it's difficult to try to control the mind. It seems to me to be difficult as to control the wind. And Krishna says it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. So Prabhupada was saying the wind, it's a hurricane. So yeah, you think you just got it covered, you think you just got it dealt with, right? You're feeling a lot better because these resentments and these they'll drag you down, they'll hold you down. They'll be like this really, really heavy weight that you just can't seem to just break out of this mold, right? Kind of, it'll weigh you down, the negative emotion. So that's basically what the circular thought thinking process is about. When the mind is wandering, through its paint and place, its sitcoms and soap operas of our daily lives. We're kind of like mulling through all this stuff, and it affects you, directly affects emotions. But thinking about Krishna killing the demons. We were just talking about that yesterday. Krishna was throwing all the donkeys, demons, throwing them on top of the trees. Made a tremendous sound. The trees were just crashing down, falling down. The donkey demons, they sounded like they were like causing an earthquake. The tumultuous rumble and sound. So, as opposed to hearing about Krishna Katha, as opposed to so many other things that it relates to us individually, but the other persons, everybody's got their own individual, their own past experiences. So it's very similar, but yet at the same time, so we can just say it's really pretty much the same thing, the mind wandering. Right, so we bring that back to our Krishna consciousness. Who we actually really are. Because there's this got this habit of circular negative thought thinking. It's a common thing in the material world. We're probably pretty much trained to do that. Due to the subject matter of the karmis and the demons, their subject matter are so many heaps and novels and movies, right? And there has to be some sort of, dissension between the characters, right? The characters have to be tearing at each other apart. I guess that was the thing Socrates was talking about, or what comedy is. People are laughing at others' misfortunes. They're saying if you take the sounds, out of the Three Stooges, what you see is this really, really abusive guy who's really, really mean to his friends and his brother. Without all the, the clicks and the knacks, but that's their subject matter of hearing, seeing and hearing. But our subject matter of seeing and hearing is the deity and Krishna's service. Let's see, Krishna is the supreme controller, so he's Ishvara Parama Krishna, and he has an eternal form of knowledge and bliss, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form. Anadir Adir Govinda, so he's the cause of all causes, as Karana Karananam. Like this verse, these words are Priti Vritti Lakshanam. This was like in a lot of the other verses before too, explaining the functions and the characteristics of the specific elements. Right? So I think you pretty much have everything pretty much covered. Any other questions or comments or clarification? Okay. So everyone understands the subject matter? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai.